Welcome back to another UNC Tar Heels basketball podcast here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're watching us on our rapidly growing YouTube channel, that is called Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and joining me is our director of basketball recruiting and analyst, longtime AAU college and high school coach, Mr. David Sisk. And David, we continue to preview the Tar Heels basketball season, looking at individual heels. And tonight, we are going to take a look at Justin McKoy, the transfer from Virginia. Spent 2 years with the Wahoos, played 31 games, 298 minutes, averaged 3.5 points, 3.3 rebounds last year, 48.3% from the floor. He only attempted 9 threes, made 3 of them. And someone that Tony Bennett often said during the year that he would insert in the lineup to get energy and get toughness. And he actually went in for Jay Huff a lot at center in spite of his size, and was able to handle himself physically. But there is more to Justin McKoy's game. There is an offensive game there that he has told us that he basically couldn't show at Virginia. And there's a wing component to what he can do, which is what we see him handling at North Carolina. We got to watch practice. We got to watch the blue-white game. And even in the very limited clips that they put out from the secret scrimmage at Florida, Justin McKoy is using much more of the floor at North Carolina, which is why he is now a Tar Heel. So, David, your thoughts on Justin McKoy and what he can provide for Hubert Davis and the Heels this season?
I'm not sure yet. And I know that's not the answer you want, but, you know, when he was one of the first guys that Hubert got out of the transfer portal, I'm trying to think, he might have been the first guy.
Yes.
And it was either him or Manick. I'm trying to go back and think. But I think
it was him about 5 days before Manick.
Yeah, and you know, it didn't generate a whole lot of, you know, really just vibes at that time. In fact, you know, early on, you know, we're probably all thinking, well, what's Hubert thinking here? You know, because, you know, let's face it, 3 points and 3 rebounds a game is not going to get anybody jacked and fired up. But as he is now becoming a part of this team, the one thing I noticed, and I still wasn't sure, but going back and looking at some videos from the secret scrimmage of Florida, he had the ball in his hands a lot. He did some things, and it made me think, well, maybe he wasn't used at Virginia, you know, in a way that would best complement his game. And you know, Virginia, they're pretty, Coach Bennett's pretty stickler for running that system, and maybe it just didn't complement what he does.
Yeah.
But I think, and I've made this statement before as we've done to other guys, they're not going to play 12 guys an equal amount of minutes. And there's certain positions that guys are going to weed each other out. And I put him in that group because, you know, you're going to have him, let's say he goes to a bigger wing. You're going to have him, you're going to have Dontre Styles, you're going to have Leaky Black, you're going to have Puff Johnson. You've got quite a few guys in that group. Now, his versatility, if he could stretch it out as a 4 and also play a little bit of 3, the more you can do, the more versatility you provide offensively, the better you're going to help yourself and give yourself more time. And you talked about the energy. Coaches always say this, and you know, you're hypocritical if you don't do it, but you know, if your energy can give you time on the floor, give the coach a reason to play you. And obviously that can happen. Defensively, when you start looking at versatility, like we said, you are who you can guard. So it looks to me like maybe can guard that we feel like can guard multiple positions. He would have never gone to Virginia if he couldn't guard multiple positions. So he's got some things that we know he can contribute. I think we're looking more on the offensive end to see what he brings. And there's also, like we said, there's a couple of other guys in that group with him that we're wondering the same thing about. So I think there's a lot of the same things that I say about him, I could say about Puff Johnson, or I could say about Styles, and maybe not Leaky Black as much simply because he's got more experience, but maybe you could throw him into that conversation. So it's going to be interesting to see how all this shakes out.
Yeah, I agree with you that we don't know. And I think that's what makes him and quite frankly, this team so interesting, because there are a lot of unknowns. we can all visualize what we think a guy might give North Carolina, but we don't really know for sure. And it may take until February before we really see things sorted out. I think with McCoy, one of the ways I sort of like to view him and how his game could start to flourish in whatever way it can flourish is that going to North Carolina is a new lease on life for him. I don't think that was the case for Garcia. And certainly Manick was looking at playing professionally overseas, and then the Carolina opportunity came along. He's like, yeah, I'd be a fool to pass that up. But I think Justin McKoy was looking for a new start. He was looking for a giant reset button, and it came in the way of Hubert Davis in North Carolina. And I agree with you about the fact that he can maybe do more, play more to his game in Carolina style. And I do believe that's an offensive take, but defensively, he told us about a month and a half ago when we talked to him that it took him a while to adjust, but he eventually got Tony Bennett's defense. And it's no coincidence that his minutes picked up when he did. He started several times last year. Bennett's not going to start you if you can't play defense. So he took the toughness that he built, learning how to defend, learning how to please Tony Bennett, and brought it over to Chapel Hill. And I'll never forget when Armando Bacot said, Justin McKoy gives us something we haven't had in a while. And he wasn't just talking about a defender. He wasn't just talking about a tough guy. It wasn't just talking about an energy guy. He was talking about those three things, but someone with skill as well. So by going by what the players have said, by going by what Hubert has said, and even based on what Tony Bennett said a year ago, I think that there might be a role for him in most games. Some guys might play more one night, but depending on what they're going up against, and maybe less another night for the same reason. McCoy might have enough versatility where we could see him play a pretty big role in every game they play, regardless of what the opponent's composition is.
And I'll build off that. If he can play the four, and he played that at Virginia. So and you've talked about him being able to do both. That gives him just that versatility. I don't think the other guys I mentioned, I don't think we look for any of them to be able to go. We don't know about Styles yet. The whole thing with Dontrez Styles was, and this was said, when he committed and when Roy was even the coach, Jamie Shaw kind of made the statement then that it's really going to be Roy, who was the head coach at that time. It was going to be Roy's move into the small ball era, and he would be the small ball four. That's what he was cut out for. So we don't know about that. But, to get back here, him being able to play the four, like I said, that versatility gives him more of a reason to play, gives him more time. But you never know. What if and I think early on you could go, a lot of coaches like the four deep in the post. You play 2 5s, you play 2 4s. You kind of let them play early, see who can do what. You have depth. I think coaches everywhere believe that no matter where you play traditional or you play new age basketball, you can't have enough post players. You can't have enough post depth. So what if Bacot, God forbid, gets hurt somewhere along the way or gets nicked up or Garcia or somebody, and then all of a sudden you're down 2, then all of a sudden he's a godsend. You're going to go, thank goodness he's here. So obviously there's things he can provide, and it's going to be interesting to see, like I said, how all this shakes up. But just repeat what I've said before. I think early on in the year, the bench is going to be deep. You're going to let these guys play. You're going to see who can do what, see who Hubert Davis has faith in. And then as it goes, I think you start to see it narrow and the bench shorten up a little bit. So that's going to be the question. Right now we're thinking, well, what's he going to provide in November and all that? But, the bottom line is, what are these guys going to provide in February and March?
That's a fantastic point about him being a godsend in case something happens to one of those other 3 bigs. And of the 4 wings that you mentioned, he's the only one I think right now that could slide down. I know that Dontrez, when he was first being heavily recruited by Carolina, people thought of him more as a lower block guy because I think that at the time he was doing a lot of that at Kinston, but he surprised people when he showed up, or his ability to play on the perimeter. Puff is a perimeter guy. Leakey's played the 4 a little bit, but the one game he started at the floor, they lost by like 25 down at Louisville. So I don't think that that's I don't think they want to stick Leaky down there. McCoy's the guy, that versatility. And if he can hit a three, and if he can use the dribble and force defenses to move some and find guys, he's going to have a chance to play a lot. And I'll tell you, David, when I was at practice about a month ago, not even quite a month ago, about 3 weeks ago, when I was at practice, I watched him a lot and I watched his shot. It's not a super quick release like Brady Manick, but it's not a slow release either. And it's a pretty release. He's got a nice shot. He says that he could shoot a lot better than he did, a lot more than he did at Virginia. There may have been a little red light, green light thing going on with the Cavaliers, and he just didn't have the red light to shoot, or the green light to shoot that stuff. He'll have it more now. And if he can knock that thing down, given the other intangibles we've talked about, I think Justin McKoy could play a lot. I talked to somebody who believes that they know this team pretty well, this program pretty well. And they said, don't be surprised if Justin McKoy is that glue guy starter on opening night.
Yeah, and a lot of teams will have those. Just because you may not average 25 points a game, that doesn't mean you can't be in that starting lineup. So you see guys that do that a lot. It's going to be interesting. And the shooting, you talked about the green light, the red light, all that. Shooters got to have confidence. So, if you don't feel like you've got the opportunity, you're going to get yanked if you shoot the ball, or if you miss it, if you shoot it, it better go in, or you're going to get pulled, or the coach has got a gag order on you. Well, obviously, you're going to struggle on that point. So, in that part of the game. So, I feel if you feel like you've got freedom, you can be a different player and a lot freer type of player.
Justin McKoy, 6'8", 220 pounds. It's going to, I think, of all the players on this roster, he's the one that kind of intrigues me the most because, he could be a guy that plays 25 minutes a game. He could be a guy that plays 5 minutes a game. We really don't know. But based on everything we've heard, and based on everything some of the players have said as well, I think there will be a role for him. I believe that this guy is going to be someone who performs much higher than what people thought back when he committed in April. He's David Sisk. I'm Andrew Jones. We appreciate you stopping by.